daughter was kind of interested in, to become a vet in the future when you grow up. If I want to find more information, about vet, about the courses, about which school, which is the best school to study, where should I go and find all this information?
You
I
can
go
message
to
me.
Dr. Teo, so let's move on to our next topic. So we have an article that was titled Low Respect, Limited Prospects Drive Singapore Vets to Places like UK and Australia. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think this was an article that came out, I think sometime last year. I think a reporter did speak to quite a few vet professionals currently working in Singapore, and also Singaporean vets that are working overseas. Did a really good job. I was talking to that journalist for a while, and he managed to speak to quite a few different vets around. I think this happens for a few reasons. I think why some vets choose to leave Singapore or not practice in Singapore. I think first and foremost actually is about the career options and the opportunities. So again, back to the point that we don't have a vet school in Singapore. A lot of internships and residency programs are not available if you stay here. And because a lot of us graduate from Australia, UK, some from US, you feel close to, there's a second home. So you're always very ready to go back to your alma mater to take up an internship or residency program. So that's quite common. So that's one, lack of further professional development opportunities. So I think that's why some vets do choose to remain overseas. I think the second one is also, there's a pull factor out of Singapore, but also the push factor out of Singapore is really, I think in Singapore, the work-life balance, well, I think it's changing a little bit, it's a bit better, but it's also a bit of a more stressful environment compared to some other countries. We hear people having 4-day work weeks and ending at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Not so common yet in Singapore. It's happening. I think it's more and more, but not so common yet, especially in our industry. Also very common is like you have to rush for lunch, and you are expected to remain connected even outside of work. It's getting better, but I think that still remains, a little bit of that still remains in our culture, in our society here. So I think that's what pushes people away. And because they're already very familiar, they probably live in Australia or UK for 4, 5 years, 6 years before, they're comfortable to go back anytime. Yeah. So I think that's what the article was about. Yeah.
So we also understand that one of the points that you brought up was the trust between pet owners and veterinarians still being relatively low compared to other developed countries. So why do you think this is so?
I think perhaps, what comes to mind would be, I guess, again, people don't know much about vets, I suppose, or how do people even become vets, because we don't have a vet school here. The awareness of what it takes to become a vet is not very well known by the lay person, by the general pet owner. But I think for countries, very developed countries like UK or Australia, the vet schools are extremely respected, right? And they have a long history. The professors there, the research that comes out of it, they're really the thought leaders, these universities and the professors in there. A lot of people in these countries also love their pets a lot. They're more advanced in compared to our relationship with our pets. It's changing very quickly, but they've been like that for decades, right? Pets are really seen as a member of the family. So, and also I think people there, because there are numerous vet schools overseas, they know how hard it is to become a vet, how challenging it is, what are the requirements. It's harder to get into vet school than medical school in these countries. And I think the awareness is there for people who live in these countries. They know how challenging it is. They know how demanding the job is. And I think from there's some natural respect for the profession as a whole. Like it's equivalent to a human doctor, or even more challenging because we learn more species, right? That's what we like to say. But yeah. So I think that's why maybe the respect comes more naturally there. I think Singapore will get there. I think people are moving in that direction. Same thing for me when I was younger. Like I said, I didn't even know what vets really do. How do you even become a vet? I didn't know all of that. But now I think I see more and more people more aware of it. So I see that trend. It will get better, I believe. Yeah.
So if end of the day, like previously what I mentioned, like my daughter was kind of interested in, to become a vet in the future when they grow up. So at this point of time, if I want to find more information, about vet, about the courses, about which school, which is the best school to study, where should I go and find all this information?
You
I
can
go to
message me.
SVA?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we are working on as SVA and also the SVNTC for the nurses, but really it's about mentorship and careers guidance. Yeah. We sometimes the vet schools have these career fairs and stuff like that when they come into Singapore. But I think the association can play a bigger role to inspire the next generation also. So in the meantime, we do get queries from time to time, right? People writing into the association, what schools are recognized, what are not recognized, and so on and so forth. What is better, which is better, which school is better for what species, and so on. So it's not very, very formal program now, but I hope the SVA can play a bigger role in that in the future.
That would be good in future, whenever I encounter any question or question mark, or any feedback, probably I just write to SVA.
Probably, yeah, selected topics, like not everything. Right?
Rather than go online and Google around.
Yeah. I think that's something we want to do as well, the scientific communication.
Yeah, at least I get a direct answer from SVA rather than like going on online Google around and get all kind of information. Yeah.
So maybe Dr. Teo, since we brought this up, right? What are certain things that pet parents or people could email SVA about? So we try to be a bit more specific. Later,
Yeah.
after this, then SVA receives
There is a
a lot of
email.
emails about everything under the sun.
Then it will be my fault.
Well, I think any topic about the vet profession, say careers, I think that's a good one. About getting to vet school, about maybe potential internships, maybe just connecting you to vet clinics. You can always write in to us. We also have some people they write in to us about certain medical conditions, specifically, or any concerns about welfare practices. Because a big part of what we do is policy and advocacy, right? We put out position statements, we put out certain things. So we do get some of these emails and contacts sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, you can always email us and we can probably direct you to the correct person if it's not within our purview lah. Yeah.
Okay, so at least we get that clear.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go back to the regarding the manpower shortage. So we understand from NParks board that there are about 590 licensed vets in Singapore as of May last year. So it increased from 542 last year, the year before that, but there is still a shortage. In fact, we see that the shortage may be even more prominent. So why is there still a shortage? Like, I know you mentioned about some vets preferring to overseas, they're probably more specialized things for them, and also, but are there any additional reasons to that?
Yeah, I think for one, I think the demand side is also growing quite a bit for pet owners. Maybe it's sort of plateaued down a little bit, but definitely during the COVID years, pet ownership really went up lah. I think that's one. I think it's sort of maybe stabilized, but there's still a organic growth. Yeah. I mean, COVID maybe just catalyzed it a little bit, but there's still a general increase. So I think that's one. The demand side is still increasing. For the supply side of the vets, even though, and it's something I always mention as well, because it's easy, the number of licensed vets in Singapore is very easy to track because the government issues those licenses. You can find it online. But it's only one of several metrics, okay, that we should be looking at. So, for example, even though the number of vet clinics as well and vets have been increasing, the number of vets that are working full-time, anecdotally, from what I see and from the community and from SVA, it's actually decreasing. Yeah, a lot of vets, many vets actually don't work even for 5 days a week nowadays. So that's one. But that's not reflected or captured in this number of licensed vets, right? Because we see that as a number going up. But if you think about it, we increase to 590 or 600, but if everyone cuts down 1 or 2 days a week, actually it's contracting actually in terms of active numbers, number of hours that vets are working in Singapore. So that's one. I also think that nowadays, people do, it's easier to, because the licenses that we hold, the degrees that we hold are quite well recognized globally. It's easy to practice 3 months in Australia, practice 3 months here, or migrate there. And this I do see more and more actually. And I think the number of the license is still being held in Singapore, but maybe X number of months in a year, this person's actually practicing overseas. It's getting easier to do that nowadays because of the global shortage of vets. People need vets anywhere. They're happy to take you for 6 months and then you come back to Singapore for 6 months. So I do know some vets actually do that right now. So that's one. And then also I think because like we talked about, because there's a manpower shortage, vet clinics have to remain competitive. So other than increasing salaries of vets and vet nurses, some also reduce the number of working hours. They're still full-time, they're still entitled to the full benefits, but the number of hours is actually cut short. So I think with all these factors, right, even though the sheer number is increasing, but the effective or workforce, like number of hours that vets are working in a month might actually be reducing. Yeah, so I think that's quite interesting. And also vet clinics used to be, say, 8-10 vets strong. So even though we have more vet clinics, but each vet clinic now is getting smaller and smaller. Average size now is 3-4 vets. Even many are 2 vets as well. Yeah, many clinics now are 2 vets. Last time it was easily 8-10 vets per clinic. So now it's getting a bit more fragmented. There are new clinics coming up, but usually it's 1 or 2 people, 1 or 2 vet clinics. Yeah. So I think all in all, that, like you mentioned, Mary, is still a huge shortage. And that's only the vets, the nurses as well. Yeah.
So what is the minimum vet that you require or nurses you require in a clinic to, in order to operate smoothly?
I think it depends on the number of hours. You can theoretically run a clinic just one vet. Yeah, just one vet. You can close for 3 days a week. Yeah.
Oh.
So it depends on the work-life balance that that you like. Yeah. In general, we do see an average of 2 to 3 nurses per vet. Yeah. So from there you could extrapolate. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So is this a big concern if this continues becoming worse, this situation? Could it come a day whereby a pet parent is not able to find a vet, especially maybe during an emergency situation? Because currently our emergency hospitals, we don't have many as well, and their capacity is only that many that they can take, right? So should pet parents be concerned that in a case of an emergency, I may not be able to find a clinic that would take me or a hospital that would take me?
Yeah. I think for emergencies, there's definitely that concern. I think so. The good news is that there are more emergency centers now than, say, 10 years ago. The clinics are open 24/7, and the expertise in ECC, emergency critical care, is actually, standards are much, much higher. One downside, of course, is the price is also going to be high because there's some advancement in practice. But there are actually quite a few more ECC centers these days, the 24/7 emergency centers. It is a bit worrying sometimes because, like, for our own practice, we're not 24/7 for Canopy. But we do say if a pet needs it, we will actually help them to call and find the emergency center to refer to. We do that very, very regularly. And some days you call every single one, say about the 4 emergency centers that we work with closely. Every one of them are full as well. Yeah, so sometimes it can be worrying, and then you literally have to like beg your friends who work there, can you just please take this case? This animal is not going to make it. And yeah, and it some days are like that actually, and I do feel sometimes it gets more and more common, especially with how full all the emergency centers are. And there are fewer and fewer vets that want to work like the graveyard shift as well, like overnight. Now there are fewer and fewer of them for work-life balance, and when they start a family, it's difficult to work these kind of hours. So that this is a challenge that we face. But I'm a strong believer that the market forces are very strong forces, and if there's some gap, it hopefully will be filled by the market at some point. Yeah.
So do you think that this is something that actually having a vet school in Singapore could really, really help to resolve?
Yeah, I think well, first and foremost, it's like in Singapore, right? When we needed more doctors, we set up a second human medicine medical school at NTU, right? So it's the same thing. You need a very stable supply of fresh graduates. If not, you're always at the mercy of external factors. I mean, of course, you graduate from Singapore, yeah, like you can still move overseas, I suppose, but at least there's this constant supply of fresh graduates, which we don't have at all in Singapore. So definitely in terms of supplying a steady supply of fresh blood into the workforce, vet school definitely would help. So that's one. You also have some control over the curriculum if it's a local vet school, right? Because yes, we go to US, yes, we go to UK, Australia to study. They're very good programs. But whatever you're learning is in their context, which would apply for the most part in our context. But certain diseases, the weather, the climate is different. The prevalence of diseases are different. The way we treat the animals in Australia and in Singapore is very different. The religion and culture is different here. So having a vet school here, and if we can control the curriculum and fine-tune it to suit our local context, actually it'd be very good. The graduates from the Singapore vet school, if it does form, will be for Singapore or at least the region as well. So that's one. Also, you are able to perform research. So universities, right, academia, they are very strong in research in the animal health space, animal welfare. Right now in Singapore, a lot of our research papers, we always refer to UK, US, Australia papers, and then we extrapolate and try to fit it into our context. But, our animals here are very different, right? Say we have Singapore specials, we have a lot of community cats, we have indoor cats. We have different wildlife here compared to other countries. And we have no idea what the prevalence of many diseases are in Singapore. Yeah, we have no idea what's the prevalence of heartworm. We have no idea how many pets in Singapore are vaccinated. We have no idea. This is the role of the vet school to do. The SVA tries to fill that gap a little bit, but as not an academic institution, it's very difficult. This is a lot of data gaps actually in the pet population in Singapore. We don't know how many are sterilized. We don't know how many are obese. So all these are other countries. They have studies being churned out every year about all these things. Then you can help inform policy, inform practice a bit better. Yeah. So that's why I really believe the vet school will be really beneficial to Singapore in many ways actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've touched on all our points for our first part of the podcast today. So we'll see you guys at the next episode.
Yeah, just write to SVA.
Probably, selected topics, like not everything. Right?
Rather than go online and Google around, at least I get a direct answer from SVA.